Teleportation requires murder, actual literal disintegration of every atom in your body. Because here's what nobody wants to admit. You can't be in two places at once. The universe has rules, conservation laws. You can't copy yourself and keep the original. That violates everything we know about quantum mechanics. So any real teleportation device would have to scan you, destroy you completely, and rebuild a copy somewhere else. The copy would have your memories, your personality, your love for chocolate ice cream. But you, the original you, you'd be gone, obliterated, dead. And the person who steps out on the other end would never know the difference. They'd remember getting in, they'd remember arriving. They wouldn't remember dying in between, because they weren't there for that part. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, come on, this is just science fiction anyway. Why does it matter? And that's exactly why I wanted to talk about this today. Because the impossibility of teleportation isn't really about teleportation at all. It's about something much deeper. It's about what you are, what consciousness is, what it means to be in a place, to be a person, to persist from one moment to the next, and the physics, the actual, real experimental physics of why teleportation can't work the way we imagine it. That physics is trying to tell you something profound about the nature of existence itself. See, you've been lied to about teleportation, not by science fiction writers who know they're making stuff up for entertainment, but by your own intuition, by the way your brain naturally thinks about going somewhere. When you imagine teleportation, you imagine stepping into a booth here and stepping out of a booth there, like walking through a doorway. You go in, you come out. Same person. Continuous experience. You traveled, but that's not what the physics allows. Not even close. And understanding why, really getting it deep in your bones, changes everything about how you think about identity, consciousness, and what makes you, you. This video is going to do three things for you. First, I'm going to show you exactly why the laws of physics make beam-me-up style teleportation fundamentally impossible, not impractical, not we need better technology. Impossible by the rules of reality itself, rules that have been tested millions of times and never once violated. The universe says no to teleportation, and it says it loud and clear through something called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle and the No-Cloning Theorem. We'll get into both of those, and I'll make them simple enough that you don't need any math background to understand why they're absolute barriers. Second, this is going to reframe your understanding of identity in a way that's both unsettling and strangely liberating. If you can't be copied, if continuity matters, if the you that steps out of a teleporter isn't the same you that stepped in, what does that mean about the person you're becoming right now, moment by moment, as your cells replace themselves? As you age, as you change, the physics forces a philosophical reckoning that most people spend their whole lives avoiding. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that clarity, even if it's uncomfortable, is worth having. Third, I'm going to give you a different kind of power. Not power over space. You're not going to learn how to teleport, obviously, but power over meaning. By understanding why we can't cheat the universe's rules about information, about uncertainty, about identity, you'll gain something more valuable than the ability to beam across the galaxy. You'll gain clarity about what's real, what's possible, and what it actually means to be somewhere, to be someone. To matter in a universe that doesn't care about your convenience, but seems almost deliberately designed to protect the uniqueness of your experience. Most people, when they think about teleportation, they end up in one of two camps. Either they think, oh, that's cool, maybe we'll figure it out someday with better technology. Or they think, that's obviously impossible, stop wasting my time. Both of those responses miss the point entirely. The real insight isn't about teleportation, it's about what the impossibility of teleportation reveals. The universe is trying to tell you something about the nature of existence itself, and it's using the impossibility of teleportation as the messenger. You know what the universe is saying. It's saying you cannot be duplicated. You cannot be copied and pasted across space like a computer file. You are not information that can run on any substrate. You are this specific physical, irreplaceable instance of consciousness, and I'm going to prove that to you using nothing but verified experimental physics. No philosophy, no speculation. Just the laws of nature as we actually observe them. So let's start with something that sounds too good to be true, because it is. Imagine I built a machine, a perfect scanning machine, and this machine could read every single atom in your body, every particle, every quantum state, everything about you, down to the smallest possible detail. And then it transmits that information across space, maybe as a radio signal, maybe through some quantum channel, and rebuilds you somewhere else. Atom for atom, perfect copy. Same memories, same personality, same everything. You step in here, you step out there. Teleportation. Except here's the problem that nobody wants to think about. What happens to the original you? The you standing in the scanner? Because if I just built a copy of you somewhere else, and you're still standing in the machine, that's not teleportation. That's cloning. And now there's two of you, both with the same memories up to the point of scanning, both thinking they're the real you, both absolutely convinced they're the original. And the universe has a big problem with that. See, there are these things called conservation laws in physics. Energy is conserved. You can't create it or destroy it, only change its form. Mass is conserved. Electric charge is conserved. All these quantities that describe the physical world, the universe keeps perfect accounting of them. The books always balance. Always. We've never observed a violation of conservation laws. Not once. Not ever. And if I could just copy you and have two of you walking around, I'd be violating those conservation laws left and right. I'd be creating mass, creating energy, creating charge. The universe doesn't allow that. The ledger has to balance. So, okay, you might say, fine, the machine doesn't just copy you, it moves you, it scans you here, transmits the information there, rebuilds you there, and destroys the original. Disintegrates you completely. Every atom, gone. The books balance now, same amount of matter, same amount of energy, just rearranged in a different location. That works, right? That's teleportation. And here's where I need you to really sit with this. Yes, that works. Physically, that works. The conservation laws are satisfied. The information transfers. A perfect copy of you appears somewhere else. That copy has all your memories. It remembers deciding to use the teleporter. It remembers stepping in. It remembers, well, it remembers everything you remember. It is, by every measurable standard, you. Same brain structure, same neural connections, same personality quirks, same irrational fear of spiders or whatever. Perfect duplicate. But you, the you, reading these words right now, the you, experiencing this moment from the inside, you're dead. You died in the scanner when it disintegrated you. Your consciousness ended, your subjective experience terminated, full stop. The person who walks out on the other end isn't you having arrived somewhere. It's a new person, a copy, who has all your memories and therefore believes they survived the trip. They remember getting in. They remember arriving. They have no memory of dying because they weren't there for that part. They're a new consciousness that began existing with all your memories already installed. And here's the thing that keeps me up at night. From the outside, it looks like you traveled. Your friends on the other end, they see you arrive. You act like you. Talk like you. Remember them, remember everything. As far as they can tell, you made the trip successfully. Even you, the copy, you think you made it. You have continuity of memory, even if you don't have continuity of consciousness. The story is unbroken from your perspective. But the original consciousness, the thing experiencing this moment right now as you listen to my voice or read these words, that ended, that died, and a new one began, convinced it's the same one. Can you feel how disturbing that is? It should be disturbing, because this isn't science fiction anymore. This is the actual physics of how quantum teleportation works. And yes, I said quantum teleportation works. We've done it. Scientists have successfully teleported particles, photons, atoms. They've transferred the quantum state of a particle from one location to another with perfect fidelity. It works. The physics is real. But the way it works is exactly as terrifying as I just described. In 1997, a team of physicists successfully teleported a photon. Not science fiction. Real experiment. Real results, published in Nature, one of the most prestigious scientific journals in the world. They took a photon, a particle of light, and they teleported its quantum state across their laboratory. Perfect transfer. The photon on the other end had exactly the same quantum properties as the original. Exactly the same. They proved that teleportation is possible. But here's what they also proved, and this is crucial. The original photon's quantum state was destroyed in the process. Let me walk you through how it actually worked, because the details matter here. They started with two photons that were entangled. That's a quantum thing where two particles are connected in a weird way, such that measuring one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. Don't worry about how entanglement works for now. Just know they had two photons, A and B, that were entangled with each other. Then they had a third photon, C, whose quantum state they wanted to teleport. Here's the process. They performed a special kind of measurement on photon C and photon A together. This measurement destroyed the quantum state of photon C. Gone. Annihilated. But the measurement gave them information, just classical information, regular numbers they could write down, about how photons C and A related to each other. They sent that classical information to wherever photon B was located. Could be across the room, could be across the universe. Doesn't matter. And then, based on that information, they manipulated photon B in a specific way. And after that manipulation, photon B had the exact quantum state that photon C used to have before it was destroyed. The quantum state teleported. The information transferred. But photon C died in the process. Its original state was necessarily destroyed by the measurement. And this isn't a technical limitation. It's not like, oh, if we just had better equipment, we could keep photon C intact. No, the destruction is fundamental to how the process works. Quantum teleportation works because measurement destroys the original quantum state. That's the mechanism. That's how it's possible at all. And when you understand that, when you really get it, you realize that successful teleportation doesn't solve the problem. It confirms the nightmare. We figured out how to teleport quantum states, and in doing so, we proved that teleportation necessarily means death and reconstruction. The pattern transfers, the information moves, but the original, destroyed, always, by the fundamental laws of quantum mechanics. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's weird for a photon, but I'm not a photon. I'm a person. I'm made of like trillions and trillions of atoms. Surely that's different. And you're right, it is different. It's much, much worse. Because with a person, you run into something called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, and it completely destroys any hope of perfect teleportation, even in principle. Werner Heisenberg figured this out in the 1920s, and it's one of the most profound discoveries in all of physics. Here's what it says. You cannot measure both the position and the momentum of a particle with perfect precision at the same time. The more precisely you know where something is, the less precisely you can know where it's going. And vice versa. The more precisely you measure its momentum, how fast it's moving, and in what direction, the fuzzier its position becomes. This isn't about bad instruments. It's not about needing better microscopes or more sensitive detectors. It's fundamental to the nature of reality itself. The universe doesn't allow perfect knowledge of both position and momentum simultaneously. It's written into the math of quantum mechanics. It's been verified experimentally millions of times. There's no wiggle room. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle is as solid as physics gets. Now, why does this destroy teleportation? Simple. To perfectly reconstruct you somewhere else, I need to scan you completely. I need to know the exact quantum state of every single particle in your body. All the electrons, all the protons, all the neutrons, every atom in every molecule in every cell. And to specify a quantum state completely, I need to know both position and momentum, where things are and where they're going. But Heisenberg says I can't have both pieces of information with perfect precision. So right away, there's a limit to how well I can scan you. I can get close. I can get really, really close, but I cannot get perfect information. The universe forbids it, which means I cannot perfectly reconstruct you somewhere else. There will always be uncertainty, always some fuzziness, some degradation of information. And here's where it gets beautiful in a strange way. The universe is protecting your uniqueness by making you unknowable. Think about that. You cannot be perfectly measured. You cannot be completely specified by any set of numbers, no matter how detailed. There's always something that escapes the net of measurement. Always something mysterious, something that cannot be pinned down. You know how you can never fully understand another person, never completely know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what's going on in their inner world. Physics says you can never fully specify their physical state either, not even in principle. There's always uncertainty, always mystery, always something that cannot be captured, even by the most complete description the laws of nature allow. That's not a limitation to overcome. That's a feature of reality, and it's a feature that preserves something precious, the impossibility of perfect duplication. You cannot be Xeroxed. You cannot be copied and pasted. The universe has written into its deepest laws that you are fundamentally unreproducible. But wait, it gets even better, or worse, depending on how you look at it. There's something called the No-Cloning Theorem in quantum mechanics. This is a mathematical proof, not a hypothesis, not a theory, but a proven theorem that says you cannot create a perfect copy of an unknown quantum state. It's impossible, forbidden by the laws of physics. Here's why this theorem exists. If you could perfectly clone quantum states, you could use that to send information faster than light. You could clone a particle, measure one copy one way and the other copy a different way, and extract more information than quantum mechanics allows from a single measurement. You'd be violating the uncertainty principle. You'd be breaking causality itself, the relationship between cause and effect. Reality would become inconsistent. The math would break. The universe would stop making sense. So nature forbids it. Perfect cloning of quantum states is impossible. And since you're made of particles with quantum states, since your brain's neurons have quantum properties, since the atoms in your DNA exist in quantum states, this means you cannot be perfectly cloned. Not just as a practical matter, as a fundamental principle of physics. The universe will not allow a perfect copy of you to exist. You are unique, not in a poetic sense, but in a physical law sense. The no-cloning theorem guarantees it. You are irreplaceable by the rules of quantum mechanics. Now, quantum teleportation gets around the no-cloning theorem because it doesn't clone. It transfers. The original is destroyed, the copy is created, but there's never two copies at the same time. The books balance. The universe's accounting is satisfied. But that brings us back to the existential horror. Okay, fine, you can teleport by destroying the original. But does that mean you survive? Does that mean the consciousness experiencing this moment right now would continue on the other end? Or does it mean you die and a copy wakes up thinking it's you? Physics can't answer that question. The equations don't care about subjective experience. They track information, energy, momentum, charge, all the physical quantities we can measure. But consciousness, the felt experience of being someone, that's not in the equations. And that's the crack where the whole thing falls apart. Let me tell you what I think is really going on here. I think the universe is trying to tell us something about what we are, and it's not what we think we are. See, your body is constantly replacing itself. Every few days, the lining of your gut gets completely new cells. Every few months, your skin is entirely replaced. Red blood cells last about 4 months. The calcium in your bones gets cycled out over years. In roughly 7 years, almost every atom in your body has been swapped out for a new one. You eat food, you breathe air, and gradually you become a completely different collection of atoms. And yet, you still feel like you. Same person, same consciousness, same sense of identity. The thing experiencing this moment feels continuous with the thing that experienced yesterday, last week, last year. There's an unbroken thread, even though the physical substrate has been completely replaced. So what are you? You're not the atoms. The atoms come and go. You're the pattern. The information, the specific way those atoms are organized, the connections between neurons, the structure of your memories, the configuration of your personality. You're a process, not a thing. A verb, not a noun. A pattern that maintains itself over time, even as the underlying material constantly changes. And if that's true, if you're really just information, just a pattern, then copying that information and running it somewhere else should preserve you. The teleporter should work. Your identity should transfer with the information. But does it? Would it? Can a pattern exist in 2 places at once and be the same pattern? If I make a perfect copy of you and destroy the original, is the copy you, or is it someone else who just thinks they're you? Here's the thing. I can't answer that. Nobody can. It's not a physics question anymore. It's a question about the nature of consciousness, and consciousness doesn't show up in the equations. Physics can tell me how to transfer quantum states. It can tell me what conservation laws require. It can describe the information processing happening in your brain, but it cannot tell me whether the subjective experience, the what it's like to be you, would survive the transfer. And that's terrifying, because it means the most important question about teleportation isn't a scientific question. It's a philosophical one, maybe even a spiritual one. Does identity require physical continuity? Does consciousness need an unbroken thread of cause and effect in the same matter? Or is consciousness just information, and as long as the information continues, you continue, regardless of what substrate it runs on? I don't know. I genuinely don't know, and neither does anyone else, despite what they might claim. We don't understand consciousness well enough to answer that question scientifically. Maybe we never will. Maybe consciousness is fundamentally beyond the reach of physics. Maybe it's a category error to even try to reduce subjective experience to particles and fields. But here's what I do know. The universe doesn't allow perfect copying. It doesn't allow you to be in 2 places at once with the same quantum state. It doesn't allow perfect knowledge of your complete physical state. These aren't technical limitations we'll engineer around. These are fundamental laws, verified over and over, never violated. And they seem almost designed to protect something, to preserve uniqueness, to make sure that this moment, this experience, this instance of you, it matters. It can't be duplicated, can't be replaced, can't be Xeroxed into eternity. Maybe that's the universe's way of saying that you matter, not you as an abstract pattern that could run anywhere. You as this specific, physical, here and now instance of consciousness. The you that's experiencing this exact moment in this exact body, in this exact location. That you cannot be copied, and maybe that means something. Let me tell you a story that might help you feel this in your gut. Imagine there's a teleporter that works perfectly. It scans you, destroys you, rebuilds you somewhere else. Instant travel. No time wasted. You use it every day to commute to work. Step in your bedroom, step out at the office. Easy. Convenient. Everybody uses it. It's just normal technology like flying or driving. But here's the thing. Every single morning, you die. The you that wakes up in bed gets vaporized by the scanner. Gone. Dead. And a new you wakes up at the office with all your memories, thinking they just had a normal commute. That new you lives through the day, comes home, maybe using a regular car this time, or maybe using the teleporter again and dying again, and goes to sleep. Next morning, maybe it's the same you that wakes up, or maybe you use the teleporter to go get breakfast and you die again before lunch. From the outside, everything looks normal. Your friends see you every day. You act consistent. Your memories are continuous. The story makes sense, but from the inside, from the perspective of each individual consciousness, lifespans are measured in hours or minutes. Each instance of you gets born, lives briefly, dies. New instance, same memories, no idea they're not the original. Over and over. Death and rebirth, hidden behind the continuity of memory and behavior. Is that still you? Is that a life worth living? Would you step into that teleporter if you really understood what was happening? Or would the convenience suddenly feel like Russian roulette, where you pull the trigger every time but a copy of you walks away thinking they survived? Now here's where it gets really weird. Maybe that's already happening. Maybe you're already dying and being reborn moment to moment, and the sense of continuity is an illusion. Your neurons are firing, quantum states are decohering, atoms are being replaced, and the you of this moment is not the same you as 5 seconds ago. Different matter. Different configuration, just similar enough that the pattern persists and creates a subjective experience of being the same person. Maybe consciousness is always discontinuous, and we just don't notice because the gaps are too small. Maybe there is no continuous you, just a succession of slightly different instances, each one inheriting the memories of the previous one and mistaking that inheritance for continuity. Maybe death is just a bigger version of what's already happening all the time. I don't know if that's true, but quantum mechanics and neuroscience both suggest it might be. And if it is, if you're already surviving constant micro-deaths and rebirths, then maybe the teleporter isn't any different. Maybe it's just making explicit what's already implicit in the nature of consciousness and physical existence. Or maybe not. Maybe there's something sacred about continuity, about the specific unbroken chain of cause and effect that connects this moment to the next. Maybe breaking that chain, even for an instant, kills something that matters, some essence of identity that can't be captured in the pattern alone. See, this is why the teleportation question is so powerful. It forces you to confront what you actually believe about yourself. Are you the pattern or the process? The information or the experience? The atoms or the arrangement? And depending on how you answer, the idea of teleportation is either totally fine or literally suicide. Physics doesn't care which answer you choose. The equations work either way. You can describe teleportation as information transfer, pattern destroyed here, pattern recreated there, conservation laws satisfied, everything consistent. Or you can describe it as murder and resurrection, consciousness terminated here, new consciousness initiated there with copied memories, subjective experience broken, original person dead. Both descriptions are compatible with the physics. The math doesn't discriminate. But you care. You care very much. Because one of those descriptions means you could use a teleporter and be fine. The other means using a teleporter is choosing to die so a copy can continue your life. And you have to decide which one you believe without any help from physics. The universe has given you the constraints. No perfect cloning. No simultaneous perfect knowledge of position and momentum, conservation laws must hold, but within those constraints, the question of whether you would survive teleportation remains genuinely, terrifyingly open. Now let me talk about what this means for all the other ways people imagine cheating death or achieving immortality. Because teleportation isn't the only place this comes up. There's this popular idea in some tech circles that we're going to achieve immortality by uploading our consciousness to computers, scan the brain, map all the neural connections, simulate the whole thing in software. Your mind runs on a computer instead of biological neurons. Boom. Digital immortality. You get to live forever. Except, and I think you see where this is going, that's just teleportation in disguise. You're transferring the pattern from a biological substrate to a digital substrate, and the exact same questions apply. Is the digital version you? Or is it a copy that thinks it's you, while the biological you dies during the upload process? Does continuity matter? Does the medium matter? If we have to destroy your biological brain to scan it completely, are you okay with dying so a simulation can continue? The physics problems are the same too. Heisenberg uncertainty still applies. You can't scan a brain with perfect precision. There will be degradation, loss of information, uncertainty. Maybe you can get close enough that the digital copy is functionally identical. Maybe the copy would be so similar that nobody could tell the difference, including the copy itself. But perfect? No. The universe doesn't allow perfect copying of quantum states. Never has, never will. And even if you could copy perfectly, even if somehow you could violate the no-cloning theorem, which you can't, but let's pretend, you still have the identity question, the consciousness question, the you-ness question. Does the simulation experience itself as continuous with the biological you, or is it a new consciousness that boots up with your memories and believes it's you? I can't answer that, but I can tell you this. Anyone who promises you digital immortality without addressing these questions is either ignorant or lying. The physics of information transfer applies to brains just as much as it applies to teleporters. You can't escape the fundamental limits. You can't cheat conservation laws. You can't avoid the destruction of the original if you want to transfer the pattern somewhere else. So before you sign up to have your brain scanned and uploaded, ask yourself, am I okay with dying so a copy can continue? Because that might be what you're agreeing to. The copy will wake up thinking they survived. They'll have your memories right up to the moment of scanning. They'll believe they're you. But you, the consciousness experiencing this moment right now, you might end during the upload, and you won't be there to see what happens next. Maybe that's okay. Maybe the continuation of the pattern is what matters, and the subjective experience of individual consciousness is just an illusion anyway. Maybe death is always happening and we're always being replaced and it doesn't matter as long as the story continues. Or maybe consciousness is the only thing that actually matters and destroying it, even to create a perfect copy, is a tragedy beyond measure. I don't know. You have to decide consciously. At least understand what you're deciding. Don't sleepwalk into technological immortality without recognizing that it might be technological suicide. The universe is trying to tell you something through the impossibility of perfect copying. Maybe you should listen. Let me bring this back down to earth, because we've been pretty abstract and philosophical for a while. What does all this mean for your actual life right now? You're not going to encounter a teleporter tomorrow. You're probably not going to have the option to upload your consciousness to a computer anytime soon. So why does any of this matter? Here's why. The impossibility of being in two places at once isn't just a physics fact. It's an invitation to presence. Right now, you can only be exactly where you are. You cannot be copied. You cannot be duplicated. You cannot split your attention across multiple locations and actually be fully present in any of them. You are here. Only here. This body. This place. This moment. And the universe enforces that through its most fundamental laws. Most of us spend our lives wishing we could be multiple places at once. I should be at work, but also at home with my kids. I should be on this phone call, but also responding to these emails. I should be having this conversation, but also thinking about that other thing I need to do. We fragment ourselves mentally, trying to be everywhere, and we end up being nowhere fully. But physics says no. You are here. The atoms that make up your body are here. The neurons firing in your brain are here. The quantum states encoding your consciousness are here. You cannot be somewhere else simultaneously. That's not a limitation. That's a fact that demands presence. That invites full engagement with exactly where you are, because where you are is the only place you can possibly be. When I really feel that, when I stop fighting it and just accept that I am exactly here and nowhere else, something relaxes. The frantic energy of trying to be multiple places calms down. Because it's not possible. The universe has made it impossible. So I might as well be fully here, fully present, fully engaged with this moment and this place. Not because it's virtuous or mindful or whatever, but because it's the only option that's actually real. And there's something else. The fact that you cannot be perfectly copied means This moment is unique, not poetically unique. Physically unique. The specific configuration of atoms that makes up your body right now, in this location, processing this information, that configuration cannot be perfectly reproduced. The No-Cloning Theorem guarantees it. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle guarantees it. The conservation laws guarantee it. So every moment you experience is cosmically singular. It happens once, it cannot be saved, cannot be replayed, cannot be copied and stored for later. The quantum states in your brain right now, creating your subjective experience of this moment, are unique in the universe. When this moment ends, it's gone forever, not recorded anywhere, not reproducible. Just gone, replaced by the next moment, which will also be unique and unreproducible. That should change how you pay attention. Not in a stressed, grasping way, trying to hold on to every moment because it's fleeting, but in a relaxed, appreciative way. This is it. This is the only time this moment will ever happen. The only time this specific configuration of reality will exist. And you're here for it. You're experiencing it. That's kind of amazing. And it applies to interactions with other people too. Every conversation you have is fundamentally unreproducible. The specific atoms in your body and their body, the exact photons traveling between you carrying information, the precise quantum states in both your brains as you process language and emotion, none of that can be perfectly recreated. Even if you record the conversation, you're only capturing partial information. The full quantum state of two conscious beings interacting? That's lost the moment it happens, which means every moment with someone you love is unique in a way that goes beyond sentiment. It's physically, provably, fundamentally unrepeatable. The universe guarantees it. And maybe that makes it more precious. Maybe knowing that this conversation, this hug, this shared laugh, it can't be copied, can't be saved, can't happen again exactly this way. Maybe that's worth remembering, worth being present for, worth putting your phone down for. I'm not saying this to make you anxious about cherishing every moment. That's exhausting and misses the point. I'm saying this because the physics reveals something beautiful. You don't need to grasp at moments to make them matter. They already matter. They already can't be replaced. The universe has already ensured their uniqueness through its most fundamental laws. You just have to notice. Be here for it. That's all. And then there's the thing about change, about impermanence, about the fact that you're constantly being replaced anyway, slowly, atom by atom, cell by cell. The you of 7 years ago shares almost no atoms with present you. Different matter, different configuration. And yet here you are, feeling like the same person. The pattern persists even as the substrate constantly changes. This tells you something important about loss and transformation. When you go through a major life change, when you lose someone, lose a job, move to a new place, become a different version of yourself, it feels like a kind of death. The old you ends. A new you begins. And there's grief in that, even when the change is positive. But you've actually already survived countless such transitions. Your body has already replaced itself multiple times. Your beliefs have evolved. Your personality has shifted. You've already died in the sense of ceasing to be the exact configuration you were before. And yet you're still here. The pattern adapted. The information reorganized. The story continued, even though the specific instantiation changed. Maybe that's what resilience is, recognizing that you're already a process of constant change, not a fixed thing that needs to stay the same. And if you can survive the slow-motion replacement of every atom in your body, you can probably survive the faster changes that life throws at you too. The impossibility of teleportation teaches you this. You are not a static object. You're a dynamic process, a pattern that maintains itself through constant transformation. And trying to preserve yourself perfectly, trying to stay exactly the same, trying to prevent any change, that's fighting against the fundamental nature of what you are. The universe won't let you be perfectly copied because you're not the kind of thing that can be frozen in time. You're the kind of thing that flows, changes, adapts, and continues. So maybe instead of trying to preserve yourself perfectly, which the universe forbids anyway, you participate consciously in your own transformation. You choose which patterns you want to strengthen, which information you want to pass on, which impacts you want to have. And then you let go of needing to personally persist forever in exactly the same form. Because you can't. The no-cloning theorem won't allow it. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle won't allow it. Conservation laws won't allow it. You're going to change. You're going to end. Eventually. Some version of you is going to be the last version. And maybe that's not tragedy. Maybe that's just the nature of being a pattern in a universe that doesn't allow perfect copying. Maybe the impossibility of teleportation is also the impossibility of stasis. You're changing anyway. The atoms are replacing themselves anyway. Might as well steer. Might as well choose the direction of change rather than clinging to an impossible permanence. Now, I want to address something that might be bothering you. You might be thinking, okay, this is all very philosophical, but you're kind of dodging the main question. Would I survive teleportation or not? Just give me a straight answer. And I wish I could. I really do. But here's the honest truth. Physics doesn't have that answer. The equations can tell you how information transfers. They can tell you what happens to atoms and energy and quantum states, but they cannot tell you whether subjective consciousness, the felt experience of being you, would continue or terminate. That's not in the math, that's not in the experiments, that's not in any equation we've ever written. And I think that's actually important to sit with. There are limits to what science can tell you. There are questions that matter deeply, maybe the questions that matter most, that physics just can't answer. Not because we haven't figured it out yet, but because they might be fundamentally outside the domain of physics. Consciousness, identity, the nature of subjective experience, these might be categories of reality that don't reduce to particles and fields. That doesn't mean physics is useless for thinking about them. Physics constrains the possibilities. It tells you what can't happen. It tells you the rules you have to play within. But within those rules, there's still genuine uncertainty, genuine mystery, genuine room for different interpretations of what's really going on. And maybe that's okay. Maybe it's even good. Maybe a universe where everything could be perfectly known, perfectly copied, perfectly predicted. Maybe that would be a universe too sterile to support consciousness in the first place. Maybe the uncertainty, the uniqueness, the irreproducibility, maybe those aren't bugs, they're features. Features that make room for something beyond pure mechanism. Something that physics can describe the boundaries of, but not the interior of. I don't know if consciousness is more than physics. I don't know if there's something about subjective experience that can't be reduced to information processing in neurons. But I know that physics itself seems to leave room for that possibility. The equations are silent on the question. They neither prove nor disprove that there's something more to you than particles following rules. They just describe the rules and let you wonder about what it's like to be the thing following them. So when you ask me, would I survive teleportation? I can't answer that. I can tell you what happens to the atoms. I can tell you how information transfers. I can tell you that a perfect copy emerges with all your memories. But whether the thing experiencing this moment right now would continue experiencing through that process, or whether it would end and a new experiencer begin, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. I don't think physics can know. And that means you're free to decide what you believe, not based on scientific proof, but based on your own experience of what it's like to be conscious, based on whether continuity feels essential to you or whether pattern preservation is enough, based on your intuitions, your values, your philosophy, maybe even your spirituality. The physics has given you the constraints: no perfect cloning, no violating conservation laws, no escaping uncertainty. But within those constraints, the deep question remains open. Maybe that's frustrating, maybe you wanted a definitive answer, but I think there's something liberating about it too. You're not a problem that physics has solved. You're not a mechanism that's been fully explained. You're still, at least partly, mysterious. even to yourself, even to science. And maybe that mystery is part of what makes you matter. Let me tell you what I find most beautiful about all this. The universe seems almost deliberately designed to protect uniqueness. Think about it. The no-cloning theorem prevents perfect duplication. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle prevents complete knowledge. The conservation laws prevent you from being in multiple places at once. All of these fundamental principles, the deepest laws of physics we know, they all conspire to make sure that you, right here, right now, cannot be copied, cannot be replaced, cannot be perfectly known. Why? I don't know. Maybe there's no why. Maybe it's just how the math works out. But it's striking, isn't it? That the universe's most fundamental rules seem to enforce individuality. Uniqueness, the impossibility of perfect reproduction. It's like reality itself is insisting that each instance of consciousness matters, each moment matters. Each configuration of atoms becoming aware matters because it only happens once and can never happen again exactly the same way. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe I'm seeing design where there's only mechanism. But when I look at the physics, when I really understand what the no-cloning theorem means, what the uncertainty principle implies, I can't shake the feeling that the universe is trying to tell us something, that it's saying, you are here, only now, only once. And that's not a limitation to overcome. That's the whole point. Every spiritual tradition I've ever encountered has some version of this wisdom. Be present. Be here now. This moment is all you have. It's the only moment that's real, and I always thought that was just, philosophy, metaphor, good advice but not literally true. But then I learned quantum mechanics and I realized, no, it's literally true, physically true. The universe enforces presence through its fundamental laws. You cannot be anywhere but here. You cannot be anywhen but now. You cannot be anyone but you. Physics demands it. And if you really let that sink in, if you stop fighting it and just accept that this is the nature of reality, it changes something. The frantic reaching for something else, somewhere else, someone else, it loses its grip. Because it's not possible. The universe has made it impossible. So you might as well settle into exactly where and who and what you are, not because you're giving up, because you're getting real about what reality actually is. You know what else strikes me? We spend so much energy trying to be more than we are, more productive, more present, more enlightened, more conscious, more evolved, better versions of ourselves, and all of that is fine, I guess. Growth is good. Change is inevitable anyway, so you might as well steer it in directions you value. But underneath all that striving, there's often this assumption that who you are right now isn't enough, that the current configuration needs to be upgraded, optimized, replaced with a better model. But the physics says, this configuration, the you experiencing this moment, is unreproducible, unique, singular. It will never exist again. In 5 minutes, you'll have different atoms, different thoughts, different quantum states. You'll be a different version of yourself, however slightly. So this version right now is it. This is your one shot at being exactly this configuration of matter becoming aware. Does that make it precious? I think it might. Not in a way that creates pressure to make every moment perfect, but in a way that allows appreciation. This is it. This moment. This version of you, it's only going to happen once, and then it's gone, replaced by the next moment and the next version. And you can spend that moment wishing you were different, or you can spend it being what you are. The universe doesn't care which you choose, but one of those options seems a lot more honest. Here's something practical you can do with all this. Once a day, doesn't matter when, pause for just a few seconds and think, this body, this location, this moment, these cannot be copied. This experience is singular. Just let that be true. Don't try to do anything with it. Don't try to be more present or more grateful or more anything. Just notice that it's true. The No-Cloning Theorem guarantees it. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle guarantees it. The conservation laws guarantee it. You are here, only now, only once. And see what that does? Maybe nothing. Maybe it just becomes another thing you forget to do. But maybe, just maybe, it starts to shift something. The constant, low-level anxiety about needing to be somewhere else, someone else, doing something else. Maybe that starts to ease just a little. Because what you're anxious about is literally impossible. The universe has forbidden it. So you might as well be here. Another thing, when you're with someone you care about, you can remember that this interaction is unreproducible. The specific photons traveling between you, the exact quantum states in both your brains, the particular configuration of atoms that allows this conversation to happen. It's all unique. It's all happening for the first and only time. Even if you've had similar conversations before, this one is different. Physically different. Down to the quantum level. Does that change how you listen, how you speak? Whether you check your phone? I don't know. But it might, because if this moment can't be saved, can't be replayed, can't happen again, maybe it's worth actually being here for it. Not in a stressed way, just here, attending to what's actually happening instead of what might happen, or what should have happened, or what you wish were happening instead. You know what's interesting? Kids do this naturally. They're fully absorbed in whatever they're doing. Playing with blocks, watching an ant, making up stories. They're not thinking about being present. They just are present. And then we grow up and lose that somehow. We learn to split our attention, fragment ourselves, wish we were elsewhere. We learn that being fully here is somehow insufficient. That we should always be optimizing, improving, getting ready for the next thing. But physics never forgot. The universe is still insisting, moment by moment, that you can only be exactly where you are. Maybe kids are just closer to the truth. Maybe presence isn't something you achieve through meditation or mindfulness practice. Maybe it's what's left when you stop fighting against the fundamental nature of reality. When you stop trying to be multiple places at once and just accept that here is the only place you can possibly be. I'm not saying presence is easy. I'm not saying you should beat yourself up for being distracted or fragmented. I'm just saying the universe is on your side here. It's actively preventing you from being anywhere but where you are. So if you want to be present, you're not fighting against nature. You're aligning with it. You're cooperating with the fundamental laws of physics. That's kind of cool. Now, let me talk about death, because we can't really discuss teleportation without discussing death. They're the same question in different forms. Teleportation asks, if I end here and begin there with the same memories, is that still me? Death asks, when I end here and don't begin anywhere, what gets lost? Both questions force you to confront what you actually are and whether it can survive discontinuity. And here's what I think the physics teaches us. You're already discontinuous. You're already ending and beginning moment to moment. Quantum decoherence happens. Neural patterns fire and fade. Atoms get replaced. The you of this moment is not the same you as the previous moment. Not physically, not in terms of the actual particles and states involved. You're similar. The pattern persists. The story continues. But identical? No. You're already dying and being reborn, constantly, and the sense of continuity is a story your brain tells to make sense of the succession of slightly different yous. So maybe death isn't different in kind from what's already happening. Maybe it's just different in degree. The changes happening at death are bigger, faster, more final. The pattern doesn't persist. The story doesn't continue. But the basic phenomenon, configuration ending, new configuration beginning, that's already the nature of existence. You've been doing it your whole life, billions of times, every moment. Does that make death less scary? I don't know. Probably not. Even if consciousness is always discontinuous, there's still something terrifying about the final discontinuity, the one where the pattern ends entirely instead of just transforming. The one where you don't wake up as a slightly different you just don't wake up at all. But maybe it makes death less unnatural, less like a violation of what should be. Because change is what you are, transformation is what's been happening all along. Death is just the last transformation, the one that doesn't produce another you on the other side. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the universe isn't designed to preserve individual consciousness forever. Maybe we're patterns that arise, persist for a while, and then dissolve back into the vast soup of matter and energy that makes up reality. And maybe that's not tragedy. Maybe that's just what patterns do. I think the teleportation question makes all this visible in a way that normal contemplation of death doesn't. Because with teleportation, you can imagine the copy walking around, thinking it's you, having all your memories. And you can ask yourself, is that me surviving, or is that someone else beginning while I end? And your gut reaction to that question tells you something about what you actually believe about consciousness and identity. If the idea of the copy feels like success, like you made it across, like you survived, then maybe you believe identity is just pattern and memory. Maybe you're actually okay with discontinuity as long as the information persists, and that might make death less absolute. Maybe you continue in your impact, your influence, the patterns you've created in other people's minds and lives. Maybe that's enough. But if the idea of the copy feels like horror, like watching a duplicate walk away while the real you dies in the scanner, then maybe you believe consciousness requires continuity, requires the specific unbroken thread of cause and effect in the same matter. And that might make death more absolute. When the thread breaks, you end. Full stop. No continuation, no survival, just termination. Neither belief is wrong, neither is provable. The physics doesn't discriminate, but knowing which one resonates with you, really feeling it in your gut through the teleportation thought experiment, that's useful, because it clarifies what you actually value, what you're actually afraid of losing, what you think needs to be preserved for you to survive. For me, I have to admit, the copy feels like horror. I can't shake the intuition that if you disintegrate me and rebuild someone with my memories, that's not me continuing. That's me ending and someone else beginning. Even if they think they're me, even if nobody else can tell the difference, even if the pattern is preserved perfectly. Something gets lost in the discontinuity, something that matters. But I also recognize that this might be irrational. It might be my brain's storytelling mechanism clinging to an illusion of continuous identity that doesn't actually exist. Maybe I'm already discontinuous and just don't realize it. Maybe the horror I feel at the idea of teleportation is just the horror of seeing explicitly what's already happening implicitly. I don't know. What I do know is this. The universe won't let me find out by allowing perfect teleportation. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle prevents it. The no-cloning theorem prevents it. So I'm stuck with the question, and I'll never have an empirical answer. And maybe that's for the best. Maybe some questions are more valuable to live with than to answer. Let me bring this toward a close, because we've been going for a while and I want to make sure you leave with something concrete, something you can actually use in your life. Not just abstract physics and philosophy, but something real. Here's what I want you to take away. The impossibility of teleportation reveals three fundamental truths about existence. First, you cannot be duplicated. The universe forbids perfect copying through the no-cloning theorem. You are unique, not poetically but physically, irreplaceable by the laws of quantum mechanics. And that means this moment, this version of you, this specific configuration of matter becoming aware, it matters. It can only happen once. It's happening now. And then it's gone. Second, you cannot be completely known. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle ensures that there's always mystery, always uncertainty, always something that escapes measurement. You cannot be reduced to a set of numbers, no matter how detailed. There's always more to you than can be specified. And that's not a limitation. That's what makes you irreducible, fundamentally complex, worth respecting rather than trying to fully understand or control. Third, you cannot be anywhere but here. Conservation laws and the speed of light enforce your location. You are exactly where you are, and you cannot be split across multiple places without violating the fundamental accounting of the universe. So presence isn't optional. It's enforced by physics. The only question is whether you acknowledge it or spend your life fighting against it. These aren't self-help concepts. These are physical laws, tested and verified millions of times, never violated. The universe is telling you, through its most fundamental rules, that you are unique, mysterious, and necessarily here. And maybe, just maybe, the correct response to that is not to fight it, but to accept it, to settle into being exactly what and where you are, because that's the only thing that's actually possible. You know what I find most freeing about all this? It means you can stop trying to be perfect. Stop trying to be perfectly known, perfectly understood, perfectly optimized. The universe won't allow it anyway. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle guarantees that you'll always be at least a little bit unknowable, even to yourself. So you might as well give up on the fantasy of total self-knowledge and just be yourself, whatever that is, however messy and uncertain and unknowable. And you can stop trying to be everywhere, do everything, keep all your options open. The universe has closed that option. You are here. Only here. The conservation laws guarantee it, so you might as well commit. Engage. Be fully present in this location, this moment, this configuration of reality, because it's the only one you've got access to. And you can stop worrying about being replaced, about becoming obsolete, about some better version of you making you redundant. The No-Cloning Theorem says it can't happen. You cannot be duplicated. Whatever you are, it's unique. And when this configuration ends, when you die or transform, or change into something different, that specific version is gone forever. Not replaced, not upgraded. Just gone, making room for something new. Is that sad? Maybe, but maybe it's also liberating. You don't have to compete with your own hypothetical perfect copy. You don't have to worry about being replaced by a better model. You're the only model there is, the only one there can be. And when you're gone, that's it. No replacement, just the impact you had, the patterns you created, the information you passed on. And then silence, and space for something else. I think the teleportation question is really asking, what do you think you are? And depending on how you answer that, the universe looks different. If you think you're just information, just a pattern, then teleportation should be fine. Pattern destroyed here, pattern recreated there, you continue. But if you think you're something more, some irreducible subjective experience that requires continuity, then teleportation is death. And the fact that we can't agree, can't prove which answer is right, tells you something important. We don't understand consciousness. Not really. Not yet. Maybe not ever. And that's okay. Mystery is okay. Not knowing is okay. Living with genuine uncertainty about the nature of your own existence, that's okay too. Maybe even necessary. Maybe a universe without mystery would be a universe too small to care about. Maybe the uncertainty is what makes room for meaning, for mattering, for the sense that this all has significance beyond mere mechanism. So here's my final thought, my last offering before we finish up. You are not a problem to be solved. You are not a mechanism to be fully explained. You are not information that could run on any substrate. You are this specific, physical, irreplaceable instance of consciousness, protected by quantum mechanics from being duplicated, guaranteed by the Heisenberg uncertainty principle to remain partially mysterious, even to complete measurement, enforced by conservation laws to be exactly here and nowhere else. That's not a limitation, that's not something to overcome or engineer around or improve upon. That's what you are, and the universe has written into its deepest laws that you cannot be otherwise. You cannot be perfectly known, cannot be perfectly copied, cannot be anywhere but where you are. These aren't bugs in the code. This is the code. This is reality insisting on your uniqueness, your mystery, your irreplaceable presence. The impossibility of teleportation is really the impossibility of treating conscious beings as transferable data. And maybe, just maybe, the universe is trying to tell us something about the sacredness of specific, embodied, here and now existence, about why location matters, why continuity matters, why you matter, exactly as you are, exactly where you are, exactly in this moment. You can't be beamed up, you can't be copied and pasted, you can't be saved and reloaded. You can only be exactly where you are, experiencing exactly what you're experiencing, for exactly as long as this particular configuration of atoms maintains coherence. And then you end, and something new begins. And that's not tragic, that's not a limitation, that's just what it means to be a pattern in a universe that refuses to allow perfect duplication. That's the physics. That's the truth as far as we can measure it. And maybe it's enough. Maybe knowing that you're irreplaceable by the laws of nature is enough to make this moment matter. This breath, this heartbeat, this specific instance of consciousness that can only happen once and is happening right now. So that's it. That's why teleportation is impossible. Not because we haven't invented the right technology, because the universe has written into its fundamental laws that you cannot be perfectly known, cannot be perfectly copied, cannot be in two places at once. The math doesn't allow it. The experiments confirm it. The physics is clear, and in being impossible, teleportation reveals something more valuable than faster travel. It reveals that you are unique, mysterious, necessarily here. And maybe that's worth more than being able to beam across the galaxy. If this changed something in how you think about yourself, about existence, about why you matter, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment. Tell me how this landed. Does it make you more present, more grateful, more anxious? I'm genuinely curious. Because this physics is real, but how it affects you, that's still open. That's still your choice. And if you want more of this, more physics that transforms how you see reality, more questions that don't have easy answers, more explorations of where science stops and mystery begins, stick around. Subscribe. Be here for the next one because the universe is full of impossible things that teach us how to be possible. And I'm nowhere near done exploring them. Thanks for thinking with me. Thanks for being here exactly where you are, exactly when you are. The universe insists on it anyway. Might as well embrace it. Now go be exactly where you are. That's all you can do. That's all you need to do. And according to the fundamental laws of physics, it's enough.